In this video, I'm going to show you the 6 essential Facebook retargeting ads that we use for every single webinar that we run, whether it's live or evergreen. Now, the beauty of these 6 different ads is they're going to help you increase your webinar attendance rate, get more people to watch the replay of your webinar, and then get more sales on the back end after your webinar for whatever the offer is that you promote during that webinar. And the other great thing about these ads is that they are extremely cheap to run. So even if you're not using Facebook ads to bring in leads for your webinars, these ads are essential and something that you should run on the back end because the return on ad spend is huge. So before we dive right into that very first ad, if you enjoy this video, all I ask is that you hit the like button. So click that little thumbs up. It's really quick and easy for you to do, but it makes a huge difference for this channel and it really does help us grow. And if you want to hear more from me, click the subscribe button, hit that little bell, and you'll get notified whenever I release a new video on Facebook advertising or digital marketing for online course creators. All right, so the very first ad that I'm going to talk about is the webinar reminder ad. Now, the purpose of these ads is to get more people to attend your live webinar. Now, the reason this is so important is because if you can get more people to attend your webinars live, you will get more sales. There is a direct correlation between your attendance rate and the number of sales that you generate from your webinar registrants. So it's really important that you get as many people there as possible. And that's what these Facebook ads do. So they look a little something like this, and the idea or the purpose of them is simply to pop up in the newsfeed of people who've registered for your webinar to remind them that, hey, the webinar is starting soon. Don't forget to join us. Now, we know that with email reminders and with emails in general, about 20% of people who register for your webinar are actually going to open the follow-up emails. Might be a little higher. Now that means that about 80% of people who signed up for the webinar aren't actually going to open or see the reminder emails that tell them to join the webinar. So these ads help support that. They help make sure that that message still gets in front of those people so they actually turn up. Now, how do we set these up? Well, the first thing you want to do is set up a new campaign, and it's going to be a reach objective. So the reason you choose the reach objective is because for most people who are running webinars, they're probably going to have a few thousand people registered at most. I mean, for the majority of people, it's going to be much less than that, maybe a few hundred to 1,000 people signed up for a webinar at any given time. So by choosing the reach campaign, we're telling Facebook, hey, we want to get our ads in front of as many people in the target audience that we're giving you as possible. If we choose something like a conversion campaign, on the other hand, or a traffic campaign, what happens is whatever audience we give Facebook, they will show our ads to the people who are more likely to convert if we choose a conversion campaign, or more likely to click our ads if we chose, let's say, a traffic campaign. Now that's problematic because we want to show our webinar reminder ads to everybody who's signed up for our webinar. But if we choose a conversion or a traffic campaign, Facebook would only show our ads to a subset of that audience. However, if we choose reach, it makes sure that when we tell Facebook to target all of our webinar registrants, our ads will get in front of all of those people. So first thing we do, choose our reach objective for the campaign. Then we're going to go in and we're going to set up our targeting. Now, the people we want to target are anybody who has registered for our webinars. There are 2 custom audiences that you need to create to do this. The first one is a website visitor custom audience. So you create a custom audience that targets website visitors, and we're going to target people who visited a specific URL. And that URL is going to be our webinar thank you page. So the thank you page that people see after they register for your webinar. So create your website custom audience, select people who visit a specific URL and enter the unique portion of the URL that people see after they register for your webinar. And then in the time period, you can choose in the last 30 days. That usually works fine, but anywhere up to 180. You want to make sure that that time period encompasses the entire period that you have had registrations open for your webinar. So if you started taking registrations 14 days ago, as long as you choose a time period that's more than 14 days long, you'll get everybody who's registered put into this audience. Now, the second audience you want to create is a customer list custom audience. And this is going to be an export from your email service provider. So it could be Infusionsoft, ConvertKit, active campaign, whatever else it might be. Export everybody who's registered for your webinar from your email service provider, and you're going to upload it to Facebook here as a customer list, custom audience. Now, you want to run these ads ideally on the day of the webinar. So from, 12:01 a.m. on the day of the webinar right up until when the webinar starts. But if it's an early morning webinar, let's say you're starting at 8 a.m., then you might want to run the ads the day before as well. So up to 24 hours before. So just think about that. If it's a later webinar in the day, let's say from midday onwards, then you can run it just from the day of the webinar. So from 12:01 a.m. to when the webinar starts. If it's an early morning webinar, then you might want to run these from the day before, saying, hey, the webinar is starting tomorrow. Don't forget to join us. All right. So with that in mind, you want to export the list from your email service provider as late as possible. So just before you want to start these ads ideally. So you want to go ahead and create that customer list, custom audience. And now you've got both of the custom audiences that you need for this setup. And they're the two that you're going to target. So enter those into your targeting options. Now go ahead and enter your start date as I just mentioned, and then the end date is going to be the start date and time of your webinar. So these ads will automatically stop at the time that your webinar starts. You ideally do want to enter that end date. And the reason for that is you don't want to be coming in and turning these off manually, because when you're starting a webinar, you've got a million other things going on. You don't want to have to be thinking of going in and pausing your Facebook ads as well when you're trying to get everything set up for a webinar. So just set the end date and they'll automatically stop for you. Really easy way to do it. Finally, you want to go in and set up the ad itself. So I like to have an image that just has some really clear text on it. It says something like live today or starting soon, and then have the webinar date and time on there as well. And same thing for the text and headline, make it really clear. It's just short and to the point. So the headline could be something like, don't forget, our free training starts today at X time, or our free training starts this date and this time. And then in the reminder copy, you just want to say something really casual, really friendly, something along the lines of, hey, just popping into your newsfeed to remind you that our free training on, and then, whatever the free training's about, and then starts at, 1 p.m. on whatever the date is. Don't forget. And then now, if for your webinar, and this is for most webinars, people will get a unique link to join, which means that everybody's link to join the webinar is slightly different. So what you want to do is, instead of putting the link in the ad, just put in a message that says, don't forget, your link is in your inbox. Click that link and join us when the webinar starts. Can't wait to see you there. Something really casual and simple like that is all you need for this ad. All right, so that's our first ad. The second one we're going to talk about is our webinar replay ads. So hopefully as many people as possible join the webinar live, but for those who don't get there live, your goal is to get as many people to watch the replay, because again, the more people who watch that replay, the more people that are going to actually buy from you. So that's where these webinar replay ads come in. Now, they usually look something a little like this, and they simply tell people that the replay is available. And again, this is overcoming that same problem that we had before, which is only 20% or so of people are going to open their emails. So we use Facebook as a channel to get in front of them and remind them that the replay is available. So we're going to target the exact same audiences that we targeted with our webinar reminder ads, okay? So the people who registered for our webinar. There's one difference here. Because these replay ads actually run after the webinar, and assuming that you promoted an offer on the webinar, some people probably bought. So we want to make sure that we exclude anyone who did purchase during the webinar. So we target those exact same custom audiences, but we want to exclude people who've purchased. And the way we do that is we create two new custom audiences again. One is a website custom audience, and we're going to include people in this custom audience who have hit a specific URL, and that URL is going to be the post-purchase thank you page. So the thank you page that people see after they buy from you. So go ahead and enter that URL for this custom audience. And again, for the time period, put as long as possible, 180 days in this case. That's custom audience number one. Custom audience number two that you're going to create is an email list export again. So export all of your customers from your email list, upload them as a customer list, custom audience, and then we're going to exclude both of those custom audiences that you just created that contain people who purchased. Okay, so the targeting on this is really easy. Now for the timing of these, you want to run them from whenever your replay is available. So for most people, that's immediately after the webinar. If it takes a little bit of time for you to get the replay page set up and everything, then make sure you factor that in. But you want to start the ads from whenever the replay is available, and you want to end them whenever the replay is no longer going to be available, okay? Now, if you're running evergreen, you're probably thinking, well, how do I time this? Because people are joining and watching the webinar at all different times. Here's the easiest way to do it using custom audiences. Remember, this is only for an evergreen webinar. It doesn't apply to live. But if you're running evergreen, this is the way to do it. Create a website custom audience that contains everybody who's hit your webinar thank you page in the last 1 day. Okay, so everybody who's registered for the webinar by hitting that unique webinar thank you page URL in the last day. That's the first custom audience that you need to create. Then you want to create a second custom audience that also contains people who've hit your unique webinar thank you page URL in the last. Now the number of days here though is however long your replay is available for. So if your funnel has a 4-day email sequence and the replay is available for those full 4 days, meaning that from the time and date that they register for the webinar to the end of when the replay is available in your evergreen sequence is 4 days total, then you want to enter 4 days into this second custom audience. So what we're going to do in this example is we'll target everybody in our 4-day custom audience, and we're going to exclude everybody who registered in the last 1 day. So in that 1 day custom audience that we just created. So what we are doing here is we're saying we want to target everybody who registered for the webinar in the last 4 days, but not if they excluded in the last 1 day or in the last 24 hours. So what this does is it allows for people to register for your evergreen webinar, and then 1 day after they register, so hopefully they're watching within a day. So after that first 24-hour period from when they registered, they're going to start seeing your webinar replay ads, and then 3 days after that, they will stop seeing them because they'll drop out of that 4-day custom audience, okay? So you can tweak that a little bit. So instead of excluding 1 day, you could exclude 2 days if people mightn't have watched the webinar within that 1 day after registering, depending on how your automated webinar is set up. But that's a great way to do it. Exclude the 1 day, include the 4 day or however long the funnel is for you. And that allows you to have these dynamic ads running with your evergreen webinars as well. Now let's talk about the ad. The ad again is really simple. All it has to have is a clear image and something that says, hey, the replay is available on the image. And then in the headline and copy, just make sure you're really clear in telling them that, hey, the replay for the training or for the webinar is now available. Add in specific timing if you can. So saying, hey, the replay will only be available until this date if it's a live webinar that you did, or if it's evergreen, make sure you mention that it's only available for a couple of days. And then if you have a static replay page URL, so the same URL for everybody, pop it in the ad. So click this link to go and watch the replay. If it's a different replay URL for everybody, which often is the case with webinars, then just say, check your inbox. The link to join or to watch the replay is sitting there, okay? So that's our webinar replay ad. Of course, on webinars, hopefully you're making an offer or promoting a product or a service. And so once the webinar is over, you want to make sure that people are aware of that offer, and everybody who registered for the webinar knows about the special offer that you've got for them. So the third ad in this series is the cart open ad. The purpose of this ad is simply to tell people about your offer. So we're going to show this to everybody who registered for the webinar but hasn't purchased, okay? So the same audiences as we saw earlier, everybody who's registered for the webinar, excluding all of our customer lists, and we're simply going to tell them that this offer is available. All right, so the timing for these ads, I like to run them from whenever the offer opened. So we're going to do this from whenever you did the webinar until 24 to 48 hours before the offer ends. So usually 48 hours before the offer disappears is when I will stop these cart open ads. And the content of the ads is simply telling people all about the offer. So we're just saying, hey, this is what's available, this is what you get, and then telling them that, hey, this offer does expire in a few days, so make sure you jump in and join. The ads usually look something a little bit like this one, okay? Which brings us to our next ad, and this one is a really powerful, really effective one, so make sure you sprinkle some of these in if you are doing webinars. It's the testimonial ads. So the purpose of these is to show people the results that your clients and students have got after going through your product or program. So you want to get that social proof out there and put it in front of people and make sure they see the type of results that others have gotten with your program. Okay. Now, not into the fake testimonial thing. Again, of course, like if you watch my channel, you should know this by now. Only real testimonials, only genuine stuff is what we show with these. And if you've got video, it's perfect for these ads, but also images as well, pulling quotes and putting in direct testimonials into these ads. They usually look something a little like this. I like to run testimonial carousels as well, where we have, let's say, a series of testimonial videos in a carousel or a series of testimonial screenshots as well in a carousel. They can be fantastic. And the target audience, again, is anybody who registered for the webinar, excluding our buyers, okay? Same audience as before, but the timing for these is slightly different. Usually I run these from when the offer opens, so from the date of the webinar, from when the webinar ends, I should say, until the offer expires or the cart closes. So right up until the end, you want to run these testimonial ads. And I should mention that it is a reach campaign. All of these that I've mentioned so far are reach campaigns for that same reason that I said before. It's a very tiny audience. Often with retargeting, we will use other objectives, but when it's a webinar specifically and it's a very small audience, reach, we found, is the best way to go for our campaign objectives. All right, that moves us on to number 5, I think we're up to. So that is our FAQ ad, or frequently asked questions ad. And basically what we're doing with these ads is addressing any objections that our audience might have. So no matter what kind of product or service you're selling, but particularly with online courses, people always have quite a few questions around what they're getting and what result they can expect and how long the program goes for and all different kinds of things. And so you need to make sure you address that for your potential clients and students. So often this happens in emails. People will send out an email that has frequently asked questions and they'll answer those. But doing it through an ad is another way, again, to get that information in front of your potential buyers. So they usually look something like this, and it's quite a big ad. In the image, we want, again, something like, hey, answering your questions about whatever the program is, some nice clear text. The headline is usually something simple like, got questions about whatever the program is, I'm answering them for you here, or get your answers here. And then in the body copy of the ad, you're actually just going to have each of the questions and answers listed in there, just like you would in an email, okay? And you're going to show these ads to exactly the same audience as before. Everybody who registered for the webinar, excluding people who purchased. And the timing is going to be, again, from when the offer opened, so just after the webinar, to when the offer expires, whenever that is. And a reminder, if you're doing evergreen, use those time-based custom audiences that I mentioned before, and that setup to time your evergreen webinar with these ads as well. So it works really well doing that. And you might just need to tweak the days there. So for that one, you could do, again, 1 day after they registered, exclusion, and then depending on when the offer ends, just put the number of days there. So if it ends 5 days after they register for the webinar, then 5 days would be the target audience length, excluding the 1 day. All right, so before we get into this very last ad, there is a bonus one that I want to share with you as well. So I'm going to do this 6th ad, and then I'm going to share this bonus one with you that really helps build trust with your audience. And it's a fantastic addition to this whole sequence as well. So stick around for number 6 and then the bonus as well. So the 6th ad in this sequence is the cart close ad. And this simply runs at the end of your promotion to tell people, hey, the offer is expiring. So its purpose is to just remind people of any urgency or scarcity around your offer. And again, I know I feel like I go on about this all the time, but this is only if there's real urgency or scarcity. Like if there's really something expiring, or if there's really a cart that's closing or an offer that's disappearing. The fake stuff doesn't work. Don't bother. If you're on this channel trying to fake things like that, probably the wrong channel, to be honest. But yeah, if you want to make sure that people understand that your offer is disappearing and that things are expiring or going away, the cart close ad really is a good one. This one, probably out of all of these 6 that I've talked about, is the most effective in terms of driving sales, simply because that urgency or scarcity always does get people to pull the trigger and take the step and buy from you. So the cart close ad is essential. What we do is we run something like this, and we just focus on the fact that, yes, this offer is going away soon. This is your last chance. So we usually have an image that gives the feeling of urgency or scarcity. So something like an hourglass or a timer, and a picture of our product often works well as well. So we can instantly get them to visually recognize that we're talking about something that's going away. So with the hourglass or the timer, it's time sensitive. And if we put a picture of the product in there, then they've probably seen the other ads or they've probably seen the emails. So they know straight away that, oh, this is related to that product or offer that I've been seeing for the last few days. For the headline, we usually put something like, last chance or expiring soon, and then whatever the offer is, and then our body copy just emphasizes, hey, just reminding you that today's the last day or that there's only a little bit of time left to jump on this offer. In case you forgot what it is, here's what you get. Make sure you jump in before it's too late. Hope to see you there, or hopefully you decide to join us, and that's pretty much it. So that's how our cart close ads look. The target audience for these is people who sign up for the webinar, but you just want to get people in that last 24 to 48 hours. So you want to start these ads 24 to 48 hours before your offer actually expires. And obviously you want to end them when the offer expires. You don't want these to keep running when the cart's closed, because that doesn't make much sense, all right? So if you're running evergreen, then you want to use those exclusion audiences. So let's say it's a 5-day funnel, then you want to create one audience that contains everybody who registered in the last 5 days, another audience that contains people who registered in the last 3 days, target the people in the 5-day audience, exclude the 3-day audience. That gets you targeting everybody in the last 2 days of that sequence. But for live, obviously you can just set the dates. So set when to start, set when to stop. So to make sure that everybody sees those ads in the last 24 to 48 hours. All right, so that bonus video that I talked about now, I'm gonna put a link right here and you can check that out. That's going to help you build credibility with your audience before the webinar even starts. So make sure you go and watch that one. And again, if you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. It really does help me out. And if you wanna hear more from me, click subscribe and hit that little bell to get notified whenever I release a new video. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.